These days you have a lot of options when it comes to purchasing a car, especially in the $30,000 price point. You've got the Elantra N, you've got Golf GTIs, and even Civic SIs. But there's not many companies that can give you what Subaru can give you. Welcome to Heavy Metal Rex. My name is Awais, and this is my 2022 WRX. Now, I've already done an impressions video on a 2022 WRX back when it first came out a few months ago. Now, this particular one is a little different than the one that I drove. The one that you've seen in the other video, and I'll link it up here, was a ignition red. It was a premium, pretty much the same model as this. The only difference is I did end up going with the factory STI short throw shifter, which I will say is very good. There's not much else left to talk about. This car has been beaten to death on the internet, on Reddit, and most places where people like to talk about cars. The engine, what else is there to say? 2.4 liter boxer, 271 horsepower, 268 pound-feet torque. Still very good engine, much better than the F820. Many will argue that, but there's really not much left to argue in that particular point. There's still just so much tuning potential that hasn't been unlocked. There's a lot of things we still don't fully know. What are the limitations of the block? What are the limitations of the rods? What are the limitations of the gearbox? All these things will come in time. But until then, there are some things that I feel like people really need to understand about this car. It is not as bad as everyone says. And really, it's not bad at all. I personally believe them Subaru releasing the WRX at the same time that they announced the death of the STI was probably the biggest blow to this car. That had nothing to do with this car, because I'm willing to bet if an STI came out looking exactly like this with more power, majority of the community would defend it vigorously, considering what alternative do they have. If you want an STI and it looks like this, you're gonna take that STI. That's my personal belief. And I'm willing to challenge anybody on the internet to fight that. Another common complaint that I hear from a lot of people is that the new WRX is far too refined. It is not raw like the old cars. It's not rough, it's not gritty. Well, if you think about it, J.D. Powers actually put this out. The median age of a WRX owner is 35. Now, if you think about it, over 20 years ago, this is when this car came out, a lot of us, we grew up with a WRX in mind, or an Impreza WRX in mind, if you remember the old days. And like myself, I'm 37. If you're 35, there's a good chance that you probably have a family or a dog or something, and you're a little bit older, and you want just a little bit more comfort. And to be honest, what this car gives you is exactly that. You, 5 days a week, you go to the office, you go somewhere, you take your kids to school, you take your dog to the park, and on the weekends, you have fun with your car. How is this car not hitting all of those points? It's comfortable on the weekends, or it's comfortable on the weekdays. It's comfortable on the weekends too, actually, even when you're tracking it, especially this one. It is probably the most refined WRX that I have ever driven, and that's a fact. Yes, it still has a harsh ride because of the sport tune suspension. Yes, the car is not as quiet as some other luxury cars, but this one is quieter than a 2021, and that's what I had prior to this. And I drove it for about a year, about 16,000 miles, and it was a rough car, even considering it was about as brand new as a WRX can get. This one, it's quieter, rather, I should say, and it's very smooth to drive. The drive line is exceptionally smooth, the clutch is light, mixed in with the short throw shifter, it feels very nice to drive, incredibly nice to drive. And anyone that says that is stuck on the outside of the car really hasn't given it a fair shot and actually driven it. And that, I take blame for that for myself as well. I said the same thing. I said, look, The car looks great up front. I love what's going on up here. I had some issues with the side. I had some issues with the back. However, I had not driven it. And it wasn't until I went to see my cousin in Florida, who had that red ignition, that I finally drove it, felt the shifter, felt the clutch, just felt the car. It is much, much nicer. I'm willing to say it's probably the nicest driving Subaru that I've ever driven. And you guys know, Subarus, they're not designed to be luxury cars. But the fact that this is getting closer and closer to, let's say, what a big body Legacy is like, it's nice, right? It's wider, it's longer, and what's really interesting, it's a little bit taller, about 5 inches. No, sorry, not 5 inches. Oh, about half an inch taller than a 21, but it's only a 1/4 inch shorter overall height, which is weird, right? But that gives you a lot more room on the inside. It's got about an inch or so of extra width in the shoulders and the hip area, both in the front seats and the back seats. So it's a very comfortable car. There's so much about it that I feel like people take for granted. You're getting more car overall, and that, you know, the bigger car adds to the rigidity, it adds to the comfort, it adds to the quietness of the everyday, and then it's still very uncompromised on the weekends. Now, I have not taken this to the track, obviously. Here in St. Louis, we're coming up to fall and winter, but next year, just like I did with my 2021, I will be at autocross events. I will be on the track. This will get all of the same time that the 21 got, and I want to make sure, actually I don't need to make sure, I know it's going to do very well. It's going to handle incredibly well. Now, with some of those things set aside, I do want to discuss the way that the car looks. I know it's a conversation that just will not end. It's a love it or hate it situation. It's not my job to convince you that it looks great. It's up to you. Quite frankly, it doesn't even matter, I think. Because there are many cars out there that are pretty ugly that I love the way they drive. And there's a lot of cars out there that are beautiful cars that I think drive like absolute butt, or aren't very comfortable to drive, or just aren't fun to drive at all. Yeah, it's got some cladding. Yeah, it's got that bumper. But like, if you have seen any Subaru in the last 10 years, and you thought that this car wasn't gonna match what their whole line looks like, then to be honest, it's probably on you. Because if you go back and look, the WRX was the only car, and by proxy the STI, that did not have the extra plastic and the extra cladding, right? All of them, the entire line, even I believe the Solterra when it came out looked exactly the way a Subaru car would look. But you gotta keep certain things in mind. I actually read on Reddit, I'm pretty sure, and I gotta get this link, I'm gonna show you guys, this panel right here, this plastic panel that pops right off, somebody actually had to get a replacement for it from Subaru as an OEM, and it was like $14, something like that. You think about how much it would cost to replace a whole fender. You're hitting something like this, something hits this, rock chips or whatever, you just pop it off, get another one. There are benefits, yeah. There's the visual thing. You can get it painted if you really want to. It's obviously completely up to you. Or you do what I do, you get a color that actually complements the cladding, or rather the cladding complements the color. In this case, we went with ceramic white. I think it looks fantastic. The black and white looks really good. Eventually, the car is gonna get tinted. It's gonna be dark tint. That's gonna look really good. I'm putting white wheels on there. I actually wanna get a white under trim, which I think will look really good. A nice black and white contrast. Now, if you're getting the blue, War Riley blue, or the sapphire pearl, it's a little harder because black and blue, it's a tough sell. The red looks really good. The orange, very traditional Subaru, you know. Even the gray and the black looks really good, you know. It still comes back to personal preference. So let's talk about the infotainment system. What else is there to say? It is a giant tablet in the middle of the car. The issue with it is, as you can already see, there's tons of glare, and there's really not much you can do about it. It's hard to even get you guys a good enough picture. Let me see if I can try to readjust my camera. Yeah, it's very difficult to see, right? That's the issue with systems like this, is you don't really have much of a choice, and there's really nothing I can show you guys well, I mean, I guess it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of seen. You can kind of see it. So one thing that I want to say right off the bat, it's a pretty big screen, but look what happens when I put it into reverse. Look how small that camera is. I don't know if you guys can see it on the screen, but it's pretty small. You would think that they've got the screen that they would utilize the entire space, but they don't. The basics are there. What you would normally have in your triple cluster up top, like your oil temp, water temp is actually right here. Oil temp, thankfully, is still present in this one. I believe somebody said that it may not be present in the base model, which I think is really weird, that they should have that somewhere. Car information that normally would be up there is also in here as well, like, what's going on with your wheels, what's going on with the angle. You do have a screen where you can enter in all your maintenance information, which is kind of nice. You can kind of schedule things for yourself, which is pretty cool. Android Auto works as well as you expect it. I've got 2 USBs down here, I plug it in, and everything's fine. Like, again, it is totally usable. For a Subaru, it's great. It's when you start comparing it to other cars that it kind of falls flat. Like, I don't really have a whole lot here, under apps. There's really not much. There's like the My Subaru app, the Subaru Starlink, which I have. That's that SOS thing that you can use if your car crashes or you get stuck out somewhere, you can call them. It's actually not a bad deal. It's like $99 for 3 years, and it does have like a vehicle locator on an app, and it does have the SOS. You can unlock the car, you can honk the horn, turn the lights on, things like that. It's kind of cool. But that's really about it. There's not much to say. I do wish that it wasn't so, like, it didn't have much of a glare. I think that there are maybe some protectors that you can put on it to help reduce that, but what are you gonna do? This is the future. So anyway, that's enough I want to talk about the car. I do want to go for a drive, so let's get that started. So now, this is the part of the experience that obviously everybody wants to know the most about. And this is my favorite part of the experience. It, again, it comes back to how comfortable the car is. The car is very comfortable, the driving position is really good. For some reason, I have adjusted my chair the same height that I had it in the 21, and I actually have a little bit more headroom, but I also don't have the sunroof, so that kind of makes a little bit of a difference. Overall, I think the car, it's great. I cannot stress to you enough how light this clutch is. It is a very light clutch. I mean, the slightest, like, I barely even let it go and the car's already moving. Like, it is that light, and it's light and it's smooth. And I'm telling you, I was skeptical about the STI shifter, and I'm actually thankful that I did get it, because if you've ever driven a 2021 or if 2015 and 2021, the shifter is very loose. It rocks back and forth. There's just a lot of play in it. This, even though it's a short throw shifter, the shifts are not that short. Honestly, I'm actually having a hard time telling sometimes if it is shorter at all. But the thing that is so great about it is it's very solid. Like, it feels really good. Like, there's no play in it at all. It is very stiff, and it's very notchy, very precise. Like, I have yet to feel like I could potentially miss a shift or accidentally put it somewhere. I know most cars you won't do that anyway, but this just feels good. If you have the ability and you're building one of these, I highly suggest you get the shifter. At least get the shifter, and that's what I did. I've got the all-weather package with the floor mats, and I've got the trunk cargo liner, and I got the shifter and the mud flaps. The mud flaps are actually still on their way. For whatever reason, they didn't put them on there. I don't know why. So I don't know how well you can hear the road noise, and this is actually going through my lav mic. It's pretty hot, so it should be picking up a lot of it, so I'm just going to be silent for a little bit. I'm just going to drive. Ignore that. So that's just cruising at 50 miles per hour down this windy road. You could probably tell it's all going all over the place. It's quiet. I think it's a little bit quieter, and getting on the highway going 70, 75, no real difference in the sound. You can barely hear the engine's not very audible, especially right now because I have no aftermarket parts on this. Once I get the intake and the exhaust, it will obviously be much, much louder. And another thing, I've actually heard from a lot of people that it's too loud. If you get on a lot of the Facebook groups, if you get on Reddit, people are buying axle backs for this car with like just straight up muffler deletes and then complaining that the car is way too loud. Now that's really interesting because when I first turned this car on, the stock exhaust is louder. It is perceptibly louder and deeper in tone than the stock 21, which was very interesting. Even if I get on it, because if you think about it, it is a bigger engine. It revs a little bit lower. I think the 21 was revving to about 6,500 RPM, 6,400 RPM. This actually revs right to 6,000. I believe like right at 6,000. And so the engine itself has a deeper tone. So there are some differences to this, which is kind of cool. You know, you can hear that it is different. And dare I say this, it is a different kind of Subi rumble. People wanted, you know, the EJ to be replaced or updated, and they finally updated it into something else, and now people are complaining that it's not an EJ. You know, it's missing its sound, but it has its own unique sound. One thing that I would suggest is going and listening to one of these. You know, I will try to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a cold start. I might be able to get one later on and sneak it into this video, just so you guys can hear how it is. And even right now, this is chill. It's very chill. Here in the next few weeks, I will be welding my MA Performance catback, full catback onto this car. It will be very loud. My old car was very loud. I expect no less. So here, let's turn around. Let's see if we can do some quick shifts so you guys can see. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the engine. It's, like I said, it's still fairly quiet, but it has a little bit of grit to it. Where I live, it's kind of hard to find roads where I can turn around, especially on this road. This road is kind of not the best. Oh yeah, another thing that you have to get used to is the one-touch indicator. It takes a minute to get used to, but it's not bad. Oh man, a lot of these roads. At least you get to see a little bit of Missouri. We have a lot of hills and a lot of snaking roads, which is super fun. So here we can do something. So I'm in second right now, about 3,000 RPM. I don't know if you can hear that. And here I'm just going to give it wide open throttle. It's, you know, it has enough right now. And I'm sure once it gets some aftermarket parts, it's going to be nice and loud. Again, the shifter, love it. Feels great. Highly suggested. So we're going to actually turn around and get back on the main road. I think this is somebody's house. Something I do want to say, and Prime Motoring actually brought this up, is there is absolutely no forgiveness in the rev limiter. It's at 6,000 RPM, that's it. Once you hit 6,000, you go over even 1 RPM, the engine kicks back, which is something that they've mentioned is a big problem, especially if you're taking this car out to a track day, or if you're taking it out to a, if you're going to doing drag to the drag strip, which I know that's what they're doing. And that's a big problem. But it's not a problem for the everyday driver. Even if you're doing some spirited driving, just know that as you are nearing 6,000 RPM, be ready to shift immediately. This actually happened over here because I'm not used to it, the gearing being so short. And that's another difference. So another reason why people need to go drive this. They cannot just judge it based off what it looks like. So. Oh, this is a pretty blind corner. very smooth car, very precise shifts. I cannot say enough about how good the shifter is. It's, but I mean, you guys, again, I'm gonna have to go back and hear it myself to see how much you can hear. And eventually, I do want to do another video where I just do a POV of me just driving and have, I have multiple mics. So I'll have one on the intake side, I'll have one on the exhaust side, we'll have one just mic'd up inside the car for ambient noise so you guys can hear it. To give you a better idea of what the feel is of driving it. Hopefully it comes across on video. I know it's very difficult, but that's really about it. That's all I have. I wanted to just give you guys a tour of the car that I got, some of my ideas, some changed perceptions, because it's been a few months since I've driven it, and it's different when it's your own car. You can do a lot more, you can mess around with it a bit more, you can get a little bit more personal with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and please stick around. I've got tons of mods on order. We are gonna go the route of customization for like cosmetic customization first, because I kind of want to hold off on the JB4, especially with Cobb saying that they're gonna be coming out with something very soon. So please stick around. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.